welcome to the Starting Over Podcast. I'm your host, Edward Shelton, aka Dark Logos, and this is the show where we look at the strategies, tactics, and mechanics behind the game of heroclix. Today is a very interesting day. I pretty much spent most of my weekend talking heroclix and making teams and thinking about stuff and just overall just having fun and helping team members. I would say not necessarily get their stuff together, because that's not even close to the truth, but more helping teammates get ideas sort of, anchored down, and playing some, more unique stuff. Since the season hasn't officially begun yet, it's getting there. So, you're just taking those last few weeks of, making sure that you're getting done what you need to get done, but also getting those last few reps in, I gotta try something else. One more. There we go. So, December is wrapping up, and so, or wrapped up, rephrase that. December wrapped up, and the off season time is coming to a close here. So, but yeah, I wouldn't say it's nice to get back into the season again. I could use a little bit more time, off away from, heroclix season. But yeah, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Tis what it is. All right, so let's get into today's topic. And today's topic is something that's come up again over this weekend between conversations with a teammate of mine. Some books that I've been listening to, and just conversations with my dad, which is sort of strange because I don't usually just drop my dad as this is conversations with my dad. Let me go and bring this into heroclix, into the channel here, but conversations with my dad that I'm gonna bring up into today. And the title of today's show is Don't Fear the Warrior. And that sounds weird. Don't fear the warrior. What the heck is that? Is that some esoteric term, to summon, crit hits? No. It more along the line goes like this. And I'll even preface it. I'll even preface this. There's a thread on HC Realms, and my boys are probably gonna be like, "Oh no, here it comes, here it comes." The thread that we've been talking about in chat, and just to sort of make a point, I initially wasn't going to be talking about it, but it's in general discussion. So you already know if it's in general discussion. If it's not in upcoming sets and rumors, it's actually it's not worth your time. A majority of realms is really not worth your time. Outside of you listening to The Quarry, but a majority of the written stuff on realms is just crap. And I'm not necessarily saying that the forum should be curated or something. Don't get me wrong on that. It's just that the community as a whole has not benefited from, in my opinion, Realms community for over 3 years. Now, as a information site, yeah, AC Realms is the most prominent site, there is, but really Facebook has kicked AC Realms' butt in terms of, actual conversation about heroclix. And even more so, the podcasts have conversations going on so that if you want to be more casual, you can be in a casual podcast channel and listen to them, and then their audience is going to be along that lines. Versus if you're in a hardcore heroclix channel, they're going to be look at my meta wizardry and stuff like that, and you'll have other people talking about that in kind. But there's a post called the metagame is terrible, and it's a really bad thread. Like, initially when it came up, I was like, oh, okay. Maybe I can see him talking about why Nick Fury is a problem, some other things are a problem, and blah, 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 this, that, and the other. But in actuality, it's not even anything like that. He starts off, says, like, for those who you don't know what the metagame is, I'll explain. And it's sort of laughable. He says the metagame is the way heroclix is played at large tournaments like Rock, Events, World, etc. Now, if you listen to my show, you would know that that's not true. The meta, there's local meta, there's regional meta, there is rock meta, there is, global, well, there's world's meta, and there's global meta trends. Okay? So, all of those things factor. Your meta in Brazil or, Argentina is way different than the UK and South Africa. Like, just read some forum posts of tournament results. Like, you can see, like, they're different. And he goes on, and he's like, blah, blah, blah. Normally, metagame build is 300 points, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, hey, here's the problem. That, truth be told, that 300-point meta, it creates an incredibly negative style of play, which is very strange, because he's implying a moral value on a format, and I don't see how that's a negative, and he doesn't really qualify this well, and he says the mindset of the game has become unhealthy, and I mean, like, then the question is, if you have to qualify healthy, what healthy is, define terms. Would the polar opposite of healthy be unhealthy, or would it just be an alternative environment? Now, again, I'm not going to, like, completely dissect some stuff, but here's the part that made me sort of go, ruh-roh, what the heck is this? Scooby-Doo sort of popped up. I consider myself one of the best heroclix players around. I defeated many of the best Worlds players. It's easy for me to say that I hate playing the metagame. And the thing I come back is, who the heck are you? Like, I know most of the top players in the world. If not not personally, on first name basis. Never heard of you. Never heard of you. And the next thing I'm sort of coming to is, with your mindset that 300 points sucks, horribly. My question is if that's how you feel, you wouldn't have encountered most of the good meta players in the world at all, just period. And so, like, if you went to a Rock and you were kicking butt at Rock, I would know your name, and you would have been interviewed by me. Okay, and this is the point. And then again, folks be like, what does this have to do with Don't Fear the Warrior? Like, I'm gonna get into it, but I have to start with my text. And shout out to the guy just hit me up, Fuzzy Wumple. We about to go to church. We gotta get the text in so we know where we going. Shout out to Fuzzy Wumple. Anyway, he says this is where he says, I refuse to go to tournaments now. So he says, no, okay, let me rephrase this. I consider myself one of the best heroclix players around. I defeated many of the best Worlds players. It's easy for me to say that I hate playing the metagame. I played in Rock events, and I know that's not true. And I've hated it so much. No one's having fun. That's not true. Everyone is just being a jerk to each other. That's definitely not true. And because I know, and it's sort of like tip my hand a little bit. One of my teammates knows this guy, and actually two of my teammates go to Rocks in areas that he would go to. So if there was issues about people being jerks and being rude, it would include my teammates, and that wouldn't be true. And then not only that, if there was this negative environment going on, it would have gotten out a little bit bigger than what it has, and it really hasn't. Anyway, so there's a point to this. Anyway, it says, I don't want to be a mean player like that. Well, you don't have to be a mean player. Anyway, it says, I'm winning by points now, so I'll just run away. That does happen, but it doesn't guarantee you victory. I'll sit in my starting area and take pot shots at you as you try to come across the map. That happens more in casuals than it does in meta play. Because if you don't take any ground, if anybody's listened to me before, you have no place to retreat to, so the only thing you can do is bunker down. And if you fail to bunker down, you've lost the game. So, yeah, this is just bad meta advice. Like, this is just bad playing advice. It's annoying and lame to have to play like that just to win. So what does 300 points stop that style of play? Like, and it's sort of going back to his first argument, is 300 points does not necessarily make someone more negative. 300 points doesn't necessarily make somebody a jerk. 300 points does not necessarily stifle creativity, and 300 points does not create a situation where the only way to really functionally fight is stay in your starting area and shoot. If I go to 400, 500, 600 points, all these sort of negative tendencies that he's brought up are still viable or even more viable. You say, like, no modern age, I'll go golden age. There are tons of characters. There's characters in Golden Age that have stupid reach. And there's some characters in Golden Age that you do not want back into Modern. One of them is General Thunderbolt Ross, Airstrike Ross. You do not want him back in Modern. Like all these little piddly guys that we have around and this clumping ants and pog formation crap, he just takes a dump on all of that. Airstrikes, blow stuff up, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm Red Hulk now. Screw you and your buddies. So, yeah, if you think you had, there's a song that's like, if you think you're lonely now, wait until tonight, girl. It's like, if you think everything is horrible now, just wait. Somebody's that old dark God meta comes back at you, and if you don't have the right spell book, you're screwed. Like, anyway, and he goes on, and this is where I just say, like, you're lying here. He says, I've asked Worlds players in normal tournaments, do you know how to play for fun, and who's your favorite hero? You know what their responses are? I just want to win. And I'm like, dude, this is a flat lie, because you can listen to any number of podcasts, and those are usually, like Aaron can too in particular. It talks to a lot of the world's best players. They get on his show all the time. And the first time that they're on, he asked them, like, what's your favorite character? What do you like to play? What's your things that you're interested? How'd you get into the game? Now he says, like, or I don't know, I don't really read comic books. Now, there are some people that play the game that don't read comic books. Now, Adam Friedman would be one of those individuals, I think. But a lot of us read comic books or up on comic books that are meta players. Like, I listen to Comics Explained and the Comic Historian on YouTube because I can't really afford comics anymore. So I just use them to, like, oh, these are the stories. Okay, this is what happened. All right, cool. I'm sort of up on stuff, And it's fun just to listen and look at some of the artwork and just roll. But, okay. So, and here I love this. It's like, and so in the True Spirit of game, I have a new meta build. And he starts saying, like, 500 points, modern age, dang theme team. And I'm like, dude, do you not understand how Avengers and Justice League just crap all over everyone then? Like, just literally crap all over everyone. Because how am I going to fight at 500 points? 3 shifting focus Supermans, 2 Atomicas, 85-point bats, and then insert whoever else Justice League person here. That's really hard to deal with. Like realistically, that's really hard to deal with. Or Avengers, it's like, oh look, I have Rick Jones, I have Jarvis, and you would say, well, Jarvis with the no tactics and nothing except ATAs, no duplicates, none of that equip or possessions or ID cards. I'm like, okay, but Jarvis is hella hard to tank. And not only that, if you just stick with named theme teams, it eliminates the majority of the figures that just exist in the game. There's a lot of characters that just aren't on a team So you're just saying, I bought plastic to have plastic. Now, you might be asking, like, what's the issue? What's the issue with this guy? And the reality of it is he fears the warrior. He fears competition, and he fears that competition automatically brings out the worst in people, and that to be a warrior, to be competitive, that you have to be a douchebag. Okay? And you don't. Let alone his solutions are laughable, and he's not the first person that's brought up this stuff as a solution. That have higher point games and theme team only and all this other stuff. Name theme team only. It doesn't work because you just make Avengers and Justice League God. Like those are the two gods you worship. You know, your smaller, lesser gods of Teen Titans and X-Men might be able to rise in, and then your lesser, you know, puck style deities such as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and who else, like Sinister Syndicate, and you know, maybe Outsiders. They get to, you know, be these little minor annoyances that occur in that format, but everything else it just gets ridiculous. And you take away possessors and you take away resources, the game becomes strictly more numbers based. Like strictly more numbers based. As an old head who's played this game for a long period of time, and I'm gonna just like make a point, and I'm gonna pick a random period in heroclix. Okay, so before resources, if you look in between Sinister and Avengers, so like Sinister to Origins, so Avengers before special powers, it was all about like high defense, and a high attack was like 10. And you didn't have RCE giving you plus attack. So you were like, man, what perplexers can I get? And most of the perplexers weren't cheap. So you were having perplexers, secondary attackers, and you would have your main attacker usually be between 135 to 185. Okay, so we didn't really have a lot of... We had more tit-Polish-like teams, which we would more classically say now, but in reality it was a primary, secondary attacker slash supporter. Third character is a supporter, pure support. Okay, so that was the meta then, but it was all statistics. It didn't matter whose face was on there. You're looking at, in particular at this period of time, between Sinister and Origins, you're looking at some of the, like, I call them some of the most rawest characters in the game. So, for example, like Chip. I abuse Chip so dang hard. Average attack is 8 and 9, and Chip pushes to a defend with 18 running shot and TK. Chip was the most abused meta character for a long time, and he's 82 points. 82 points. You know, you had like Absol with like 11 attack, RC. Nobody played Absol. Okay. Supernova, you know, you have some really great characters in there. I like pretty much all the Hyperions and the Silver Surfers. But anyway, that era of clicks was competitive. People were cool. The points for most of the characters are ridiculous. Like let's look at Silver Surfer, Rookie Silver Surfer. 121 points, 9 clicks of life, 10 attack, and that was good. 8 range, you know, running shot, 10 movement, 3 damage. That was good back in the day. Now you're like, I would pay 121 points for this Silver Surfer just because he couldn't be one-shotted by most figures in the meta now. Like, real talk. Like, most people would play this figure, but mainly as a tank. But when you would look at, let's say, experienced Silver Surfer with defenders, you're like, dude, this is an overpriced piece of crap. And when you look at Vet, power cosmic Silver Surfer, most people wouldn't even look twice at him, because you cap at 11 attack after your first click, and you don't get damage reduction until, penetrating damage until click 4. And then you get your impervious, and you have lower defensive values, but you have 4 clicks of running shot and 3 clicks of hypersonic speed, but you have hypersonic speed with a 9 attack. Nobody would pay 265 points for that, because there's Supermans that are like 90% better than this for less points. Okay. So, back in the day, you could justify 500-point games, and you would have 3-4 figures on your team. Okay? But there's a competitive spirit in there. Now, here's where some things started to change. Things changed at Avengers. Things changed at Justice League. Because that's when WizKids did 3 huge things. Number 1, they introduced special powers. Number 2, they introduced Coming for Galactus and Starro. So they wanted to have big events for people to come into the store. And number 3, they were cycling into the Topps era. And the Topps collectible era was them trying to gain more market share, be more profitable, get people into the stores. Like, your whole concepts of your storyline OP stuff started here. Okay? And if I'll tell you this, and again, old head, I've seen more players come out during that period of time. I saw more players come out during that period of time for winning Galactus, winning Starro than any other event. But there were some people that were like, "Oh, we're really good. We're really good. We play the game. We have house rules." Which, and you could say this to whoever you want, and I don't care. If you have house rules at your venue, you're a lower grade venue. I don't care if you have, freaking Daniel Jones, George Masu, Patrick Yapko, and myself there. Your venue is a lower class venue. You're not playing the game. You're playing a hindered version of a game. So when it comes down to getting some of your rawer experiences out there, you're not understanding the reality of what's going on. You have a make-believe world that you're operating in. Okay? So anyway, going on, sort of back to it. So people felt that when they bought those packages that they were entitled to someone in that store getting the Starro, someone in that store getting the cool Galactus. Okay? And what ended up happening is the Sharks came out and started to show that the average venue and the average player is weak. It's weak. Now, from a survival perspective, we respond to our weakness as saying, "Oh my gosh, here comes stronger threats. My life is in jeopardy." So we have this level of anxiety that kicks in. Okay? Even though this is a game and no one's going to die. Your brain doesn't know that. Your brain taps into the same things for competition, and competition is a survival mechanic. So when you're losing, the anxiety and the stress and all this other crap kicks in, mainly because your body thinks, if you lose this game, you're going to die. Okay? So during that period of time, you start seeing what I like to call the home players who want a Galactus, who want various different cool stuff that's coming out that's only, they can't buy it, and they don't do the eBays, okay? And they want to have those little cool limited edition figures, and they're coming to the store, and they think they have a good grasp of the rules, and they don't. So now you have the Sharks, the locals, and the home players all together. You have a huge culture clash. because the Sharks are up on the WizKids ruling. Hell, one of their friends is a judge, is in the judge forums at that time, asking all the questions for them and printing them off with the super secret, rulings. Then you have the locals who have, their style of play is dealing with each other. And then you have the homebrew guy who's just sort of happy to be there until the first time he realizes that, yes, Quicksilver can run across hindering terrain because he has the Ultimates team ability, and the team ability allows him to ignore the effects of hindering terrain, not just for line of fire, but for movement. And that did happen. I pissed off a homebrew dude by playing Quicksilver. He was like, Quicksilver has to stop. And I'm like, no, he doesn't. He has Ultimates. He runs over hindering. And they're like, no, but he's not a flyer. And I'm like, no, he has Ultimates. It says right here in the team ability. Works the same way as Superman. And he got pissed. He got so pissed over that he never came back. So this is when you get the beginning, the really hardcore beginning of casual versus meta. Up until that point in our community, it really was, how do you make this game better? And the casuals would be like, I'm tired of my 250-point Superman getting outwitted by a freaking Black Panther who's 35 points, which for me was awesome. For a lot of people, I can understand why that's a problem, but I'm not really a super huge fan of Superman as a concept. So bear with me. All right, so that mindset started to develop this animosity in a group of players that this comic book reality is not reflected in this game, and that this game is a comic book simulator. This game is not a comic book simulator. This is a mathematical formula rules thing simulator with a skin of comic book characters. You can't have a comic book character simulator, because if you did, you would have to apply physics and strict rules to how stuff works and how the heck can a human body, which is, over 85 to 90% water, shoot energy out and not, retain, stray electrons and do damage to their DNA, or electrocute themselves if they use electricity, or maintain the structural integrity of their cells if they shoot freaking optic beams out their eyes. And if so, the durability and the materials of that human body would either A, not be able to move, or B, unable to receive medical treatment ever, and C, they would all be mega super strong and consume an insane amount of calories, like a cow a day type of calories, and look like an anorexic little child for the amount of energy that they generate. Like I don't think people would understand if you put superpowers in real life that a majority of these people, you would just know who a mutant is because they can't stop eating. Pure and simple. Okay, so anyway, going on. When you start moving on, what's happening? There's more and more of these little events where you're getting limited different things, like Warbound. Gosh, that was an evil time. Warbound was an evil time, because Warbound was a feat that you only could win in a WizKids event, in an OP event, and it was OP. It was way overpowered. It was so strong. Like, there was a video, I think, like years ago, you saw a guy just light the Warbound on fire. He's like, WizKids, this is what I think of what you're doing, and he lights it on fire. That's how antagonistic people were. But keep going until WizKids closed. You got Crisis on Infinite Earths event. That sort of shenanigans where people were pissed off about that because Anti-Monitor was there, and Anti-Monitor was ruining the 500 and 600 point games that was required by WizKids, and people were pissed off about that to the point that they were arguing that if I had Jericho or Deadman possess the Anti-Monitor, does that mean that I automatically win since my opponent does not have any friendly characters? And does that turn into a 0-point win? Like, there were tons of stupid debates. And I heard this because I was on the judges forum. Okay. And then fast forward, when the game restarted, there was so much homebrew that it was just like, hey guys, come up, grab some heroclix. Glad the game is back. It's like Prohibition ended for alcoholic. Everybody's super happy that they're just throwing money at whatever. They're like, oh shoot, we better get these clicks in before they realize that this is a fool's errand. Okay, so that spirit of crush the dude's skull is gone. Okay, but there is this like, you know, you played Thorbuster, man. You know, no one can really get Thorbuster around here, so why, you know, you're just showing off. And so there's animosity because of rarity, and animosity because people have access to things that other people didn't. Okay, and then you have the God packs, and the God packs really did not help things. You keep going, and then we start getting these storyline OP events right around Captain America Hulk is when you start getting your Infinity Gauntlet crap going. Okay, and then Superman set. Alright, what's going on at this period of time? People are going to the realms and going to the strategy section and legitimately talking about how to win these events. And I know this because, number one, I was part of that like push during that period of time. I started to podcast around Brave and the Bold. So I'm starting to, you know, come out there. It's like, hey guys, this is great. You know, here's my first show, starting area. I'm going to talk about Jon Stewart and why he's a good guy. Yeah. And I wish he was better. And he made me cry inside. But I can't say that. I can't say that. No. But yeah, they did my Jon Stewart right later on during War of Light, so I don't care anymore. But anyway, going back. During that time on the forums, there were people that were legitimately helping each other. And one of the guys was Casey Dreadnought, and I played with him at my hardcore venue. Okay, so you had myself, you had Casey Dreadnought, you had Patrick, you had a bunch of players legitimately helping people. Johnny Schultz was another one. They were legitimately helping people get better. Versus the general discussion thread, which was full of misinformation and vileness because someone didn't win their freaking rocket racer guy, whoever the racer guy is, and they're pissed because some meta guy came in with some weird little build using what was the lockdown got the unspoken and something else, and ruined their day as they played their band of Hulks. You know, there's guys like that. Okay, so all in all, you're starting to see this reemergence of FU meta people, FU casual people, and then there's some of us that's like saying, you know, can we all just get along? I mean, really, can we all just get along? And if you didn't like my Rodney King impression, so I'm sorry. But right there, you see a couple of things emerging. Is you had larger formats, and the casuals were still pissed. Okay, you had people legitimately trying to get better, and then pissed because their venue, you know, started to, you know, shame them. So we have the divide re-emerging. Okay, because before we were like, hey, the game is back. Grab a pack of heroclix. To like FU, and FU. Foo on all of you. Okay, so that's when you put it all together, it's foo. And that's what happened. And so it's sort of ramped up. And then you have and then what ended up happening with the Infinity Gauntlet, after it was all said and done, there was some people who said, I like being competitive. I like feeling this competitive vibe. And so they continue with it, and that's when Howard Brock started some of the competitions online with heroclix Online, and then they eventually expanded into what we know as Rock. And the cool thing about Rock is Rock allowed for the competitive player to say, you know what, dude, there's a place where you're accepted and you can come play, and no one's going to jack with you. We want you to bring the hardest of the hard. Core gaming stuff that you want to bring. And then it's almost like a traumatized kid. It's like, really, I could come out of my hidey hole and play, you know, my Black Bolt team, which I just annihilate everybody on turn 3? Is that fine? And then they're like, yes, it's fine. The casuals won't hurt you here. And then the tear rolls down the cheek. And they're like, thank you, sir. Thank you. And you have that. At the same time, in the casual atmosphere, there is no alternative. There is no alternative. There is no Rock alternative for a casual player. Okay? So now it's double down on the local venue. Now, because you have a social construct which proves that you are not strong, so that you don't have a crisis of self and deal with the fact that you're weak in this area and just accept it. There is a redefinition of strong and using shame to battle strength. So there is this big, huge little... It is a weapon used by both sides, the casual and the hardcore. But in particular, during this period of time, the shaming is, I don't need a resource to win. And the meta player is like, resources allow me to play characters that weren't viable or not viable without this little magical thing over here. And they're like, I don't need resources to win. And then the meta player is like, do you understand? You take away resources at this stage in the game, and at always in the points and stages of this game, that this really just becomes a statistical battle. And it's less flexible because the stats matter so much. And then the casual's like, look, I'm winning with the X-Men theme team. And then you're just like, okay, cool. Cool, dog. Cool story, bro. Cool story. Picture of Hercules up there, you know, with the thumbs up. Cool story, bro. I'm out. Okay? And our current form of animosity really does start around the Infinity Gauntlet. But it didn't start there. It goes all the way back to Avengers. But it also comes to this point of, again, our culture says, hey, if you're confrontational, if you're aggressive, if you have any sort of, I don't want to say ill will, but if you feel that solving a problem directly is a primary or is a good idea, is a primary idea or a good idea, then you should be shamed, and that we should, in turn, sit there and powwow until everybody gets everything that they want and it's resolved. Okay. Now, I'm not against win-win, but I also realize that how most people define win-win is really, if I don't win more, then it's not win-win. Okay. I listened to Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I would definitely recommend that everybody listen to that. It's a good book. I use it for my team. I use it for my coaching. And I use it for mentoring purposes and communication purposes. It's a great book. Like one of them, the best one is Seek First to Understand, Then Be Understood. So, I mean, like, I that's why I've taken sort of time to bring this up. But this spirit of the warrior, the guy that's able to go out there, conquer, the one that, you know, the lady is able to be direct and not be called a bee. You know, it's sort of stifled in our sort of politically correct culture. And we're told to fear that because that's what unrefined people do. Which, again, is just a paradigm used to make one group feel superior because of their lack of strength. Okay? And some folks be like, it sounds very Nietzschean of you. And it's like, that's one reason I don't like Superman. Not too much fan of the Uberman. And I'm not telling everybody become your own Uberman. and I mean that from a philosophical sense, that you're above the law and that and the other. And I'm not telling you, you know, disregard people and stuff like that. If that was the case, I wouldn't tell you listen to Stephen Covey. But what I am saying is that our current format allows for, and this is one part I think the competitive player loves, our current format allows for a player to be brutal and direct and to bring forth all of their mental strength into this arena where there is no life-affecting consequences. And that's the best thing about board games. You can be like, I decapacitate you with 5 damage. Your guy is dead. Okay, that was fun. No real life consequences. You can start all over again. It's great. Okay, but because it's really hard for us to divorce real life consequences versus, oh my gosh, I'm playing a game, stress, because our brain isn't wired like that, then you get these types of threats. You get people afraid of being the warrior type person. And this goes back to something with my dad told me when I was in college, and we were talking about, you know, my time in college this weekend. And I mean, I brought up before, like, I was a freaking mastermind in college. But I had my coach, she was a woman that was abused by her previous husband. She got remarried. And in spite of her saying gone through counseling and whatever else, she had a tendency to empower women, give them everything, give them stuff that they need, and then in turn deprive males and assault males verbally. One in particular is shaming. Another thing that she did was saying, like, well, aren't you capable of doing this by yourself? And I was like, you're the freaking teacher. You never taught me how to do this, so I'm just working by myself the entire time. So why do I need you outside of just paying for my entry to the event? And so I had this fight with my coach for my freshman year. And you gotta understand, like, I did speech and debate in high school like I do heroclix now. Like, top level, national qualifier, state champion. Actually, I'm a multiple state champion. Like, I got trophies, son. Like, trophies from high school. Like, decorated. Like, no place to put them type level of trophies. Plus, I did chess. So those medals are somewhere. Like, somewhere. And if anybody ever asks to see it, like, I will straight up put a picture up with me in the background being like, yo. And you'll see the dates on all the trophies. It'll be like 97, 98, 99, 2000, stuff like that. But during that conflict with my coach, there was something my dad told me. He's like, don't lose your power, son. Don't lose your power. And it's something that we as men are told, and I was speaking as a man in particular right now, that we are men is told, it's like your power is for somebody else always. And if you don't use it the way society says to use your power all the time, then to serve society. And I'm not trying to get all Ayn Rand on it, so just hear me out here. Then you're no good. That you're this evil guy that's just being aggressive for no apparent reason. And then my dad sort of brought it back to me. He's like, you're a male. Run with it. Understand that your ability to take action is important and is required. You know, if you fail to take action, many devastating things can come to you and your family. You live in this environment in the United States and you have the ability to be, you know, casual stuff. But when you leave this country and you go to other places, you cannot have that mindset. You can't have that lackadaisical mindset. That is not a luxury there. And if you lose your power, you lose your ability to feel that you are in control in to take action. And that's really one of those things that I feel that a lot of people, when they enter into this game, male or female, they are so used to being in a situation where there's always a moderator, there's always somebody there to balance the scales for them or readjust everything. And then they're in a situation, finally, which should have been happening their whole entire lives, but really like finally, where it's like, prove on your own merit that you have strength. And if you're not going to be killed, so rise up and get stronger. You got knocked down, rise up, get stronger. And if you choose not to, figure out a way to thrive somewhere else or in something else. But you're not going to thrive here. And that's fine. Like if someone told me, hey, Dark Logos, you're going to have to like weave and knit your clothes for the next 5 years. I'm like, shoot, I'm moving to a tropical environment because I'm going to be naked. I'm not going to thrive up in Kansas City. It's too dang cold. If I got to weave and make my own clothes, I better find a place that has a bunch of nudist beaches. So if I'm walking around down there, nobody's going to care. Okay? Can't thrive. Can't thrive in that situation. If someone told me, hey man, you're going to have to use an abacus to do all your math and for 5 years, I'm like, shoot, I'm going to be broke. You're going to take my phone? So I can't play my phone games either because I got a calculator on my phone. You know, so there's a bunch of things where someone might say, like, yeah, Edward, you're taking this game too seriously. You know, it's just here to have fun. And I understand that. But a lot of complaining that I see is really people that feel that their ability to take action, let me rephrase this. The complaining I see is most people that have never been forced to take action or to take actions that are not easy are now inconvenienced from their luxury that they've been living in. And that's what it is. You know, you want to win a LE, you want to win a con exclusive, it's going to force you out of the comfort zone of just playing a certain type of team. Because you're putting restrictions and you're running with this Bushido when you're fighting Ronins. And the Ronins don't care about your style of Kung Fu. They saw freaking Shaolin monks run through with no armor, get shot by arrows. They had good Kung Fu, but they can't fight arrows. Okay, you got, you know, samurai on horseback, and the Ronin's like, okay, cool, so I get these spikes here, I take out your horses. You know, the samurai gets off, be like, I challenge you to the duel, and he's like, cool. Other Ronin buddy comes up from behind, stabs the guy, in the neck, in the weakness of the armor. And you're going to be like, but what you're talking about is no honor. And I'm like, right. There is no honor rule in this game. There is, and then I mean honor in a sense of, and I use Bushido as a better example. The only restrictions in the game are the printed rules by the company. There is no other rules in this game. And when we understand that, then we have to come to the reality is that philosophically we are more back into a state of nature in our engagement. The house rules is you trying to say, hey, look, we established a state, you give up these freedoms for these safeties. But in reality, if you go outside of that environment, you are technically going to war outside of that environment, and you are not conditioned to going to war outside of that environment. So, if you face somebody and you're in homebrew, house rule land, okay, and you go and play someone somewhere else where they just play the flat rules, you're like, yes, we're redcoats, we get in the line, and we pull out our guns, and then you face the American Revolutionary Army. It's like, we're poor, but yeah, I'm going to perplex up Scotty's Warbot for 3 bird, 3 damage, running shot, and psychic blast your Superman for 6. Where we come from, we don't use pogs. Pogs are for people who don't have money. I'm like, okay, whatever, man, but I still hit your Superman for 6. And now I'm going to charge with this Wolverine over here, and he's going to hit you for 2. So your Superman should be dead. How dare you? That's not honorable to just hit me with a Superman, hit my Superman for 2 damage with a puny Wolverine. You're supposed to bring somebody like, Wonder Woman. You're supposed to bring somebody, like, Thanos. You're supposed to bring somebody, like Hyperion. And it's like, no, man, we don't play that here. Like, this is the wild. Like, this is the wild. Understand, you're trying to come up in here and, with some stand in the line stuff and challenge it into duels. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. Like, we just shoot you. Like, oh, you wearing that bright red out here? Okay. We're in trees. We wear green. Yeah, so you don't see what's coming. And then you wonder why you're dead. And you don't understand why the life is seeping out of your veins. You don't understand how you died. That's us over here. Now, some of you might say, Dark Logos, this dystopian type sounding crap that you're spouting today, that doesn't sound like anything like what you do on what I do on a normal basis. Hey, this is some stuff that you're just on today. And I'm like, you're here. You're already on this side of the fence. You're here. If you weren't in the similar mindset of me right now, I'm not going to say you have to 100% agree to everything that I listen to. But I'll be honest with you is you wouldn't be listening to podcasts about how to get better. You wouldn't be listening to breakdowns of power interactions. You wouldn't be looking at the concept as what my homeboy KJ talks about in coaching is layering. You wouldn't be looking at that. Okay, you would be like, shoot, man, I'm going to get my Batman, going to get my Wonder Woman, and then I'm going to get my Green Lantern. There we go. That's the mindset you would be in if this is a comic book simulation. But at some point in time, winning becomes a priority. It is not the quote-unquote only priority, which is what the author of the little piece at the beginning was sort of going into. But it also ties in that the moment that winning becomes a priority, you have to tap into your warrior because you cannot negotiate through heroclix. I can't come up to you and be like, okay, I understand you want this territory over here, but I want 80 gold. So is there a way that we can work out the territory and then, I get 80 gold and you get to do this and I get to do that? Or maybe if I don't get 80 gold, maybe you get this territory here and then when you eventually get, 15 more gold, you give that to me, then I give you that land there. How's that sound? You cannot negotiate through heroclix. And if anybody can, I need to take your boot camp and listen to your podcast. I do. Because, buddy, your freaking Jedi mind tricks are legendary. I need to do that. I will literally sit down and pay you money, real life money, to show me how I could sit and negotiate wins in heroclix and not roll dice. And you'll be like, you use poison. Like, no, I'm not an idiot. But I mean, like, literally, just like, we don't even need to put the figures on the table. Let's negotiate this and I can get a win. You can't. You're going to have to combat your opponent. And that's the thing about realms and things that involve the mind. They don't discriminate on sex, gender, and age. They don't. So, like, even when I was recruiting for my team, I was trying to get Sarah Edwards. Sarah Edwards is a better player than a lot of guys that I know. Okay? But she didn't roll up on my team. At the same time, am I just going to be like, I need a woman on my team so that I don't appear to be sexist and that I prove that I seem to be all encompassing and inclusive, so I just need to put a woman on my team? That actually, to me, feels more derogatory because it's not even on the merit of the person. It's just based off of their gender. And it's like if I came back and said, hey, Phoenix Nest is majority black right now. We need, a Latino and maybe another white person. Like if I just rolled up when I tried to recruit Aaron Cantu and I said, you know what, Aaron, I want you to be on my team because you're Latino and I don't have any Latinos on my team. That is the main reason you need to be on Phoenix Nest and not Majestics. That is a laughable reason. That is a laughable reason. Okay? But that's how our world works. But this heroclix is not a reflection of the real world. You can bring out the warrior here. Does that mean that you need to be an A-hole or a B-hole? No, you don't. You can be a ruthless predator. The other things of just being a jerk, those things come out of immaturity. No one that's in real combat proceeds after they shoot their victim to teabag them. No one does that. But this is how it is. If you don't tap into that warrior, the one that says, I gotta win, you end up sitting back wondering, like, man, how did I lose so many games when it was clear that I was ahead and the game felt comfortable and I calculated the ending and then all of a sudden it just fell apart in my hand. And you're just stuck wondering, like, what happened? And so, like, some of you might be saying, well, wow, this is a very interesting story, so where the heck did all this come out of? In part, like I said, some of the stories and talking with my dad, but in particular, talking with my teammate, Matt. And I was telling him about one of the books that I was reading for our coaching, which I won't disclose because it's in the current year. And my guys need time to digest it, so they'll get to digest it, and next year you'll get to probably hear about this book. But in hearing and listening and reading this in particular book, I sort of realized one of the main reasons in Rocktober why I got third place and not a second place or a first place. Not Rocktober, in WizKids Open. One of the main reasons why I got a third place instead of a second place or a first place was I did not tap into that warrior until the last 5 minutes of the game. And it was a little bit of pride and it was a little bit of arrogancy. I won't front on that. But I was playing it by the statistical numbers of what should and should not happen. And things did not go my way. And I was pushed to a point of desperation where all my calculations failed. In the back of my head, something clicked this like, what is wrong with you? Your freaking dark logos act like it. Your freaking dark logos act like it. And then all of a sudden I was like, I am dark logos. Boom. Colossal push. Boom, boom, boom. Keep going. Do this. Bam. And if I kept up my momentum, I could have won that game. But here's the problem. That warrior came too late. The warrior came when I was desperate and I didn't have anything else to grab onto. The warrior came when everything else had failed. And the back of my mind is like, all the stuff in the civilized world and the tools that they told me to use, they broke down. And I don't have tools anymore, so what do I do? Now again, I'm not promoting savagery. Please understand that. I don't want you to go out there and beat your neighbor over the head with a rock. I'm not saying that. Nor do I want you to, if you lose a game of heroclix, go, hit your opponent with a rock or something like that. But that moment, I realized, like, I needed to be more aggressive. I need to have that drive. And my teammate, Matt, he said, dude, because I was telling them, like, next batch of WizKids opens, I can sit home and chill. And I just coach. Y'all, I'll be pocket coach. I mean, I told everybody, I'll pocket coach for y'all. And he's like, no, man, you need to go out and play. And I'm like, I'll stay home, blah, blah, blah. He's like, no, you need to go out and play because you're our leader. And you need to show folks why we follow you. You need to show folks that we don't just sit there and occasionally show up. We always show up. And if you look at Patrick, and Patrick went out, and won all these games at all these various places, Patrick didn't take breaks. So you can't take breaks either. You need to be showing people when they see that Phoenix Nest shirt, someone knows that somebody with that shirt is going to break. And you have to be the main person that leads that. And so there's some things that are put in perspective. There's some things that are just put in perspective. And even more so as I think about it as a commentator and wrapping things up. If I just sat at home and I never went into that realm of the competitive, would you be listening to me? Would you say this is a guy that's worth spending an hour of my time listening to or more, on a weekday, on a weekend, when you're sitting at work, bored, or you're working on the TPS report, or you're lifting, some heavy crap like I do at my job, whatever it may be that day. Would you really say, if I didn't go out there and compete and go out there and win, that my advice was worth your time? And you could say that about any of the podcasters out there now, because most of the podcasters out there are people that place in Rock and place in World Cup and place in the World Championship. If they did not have any pedigree, would you listen to them? And so if you want to take the life lesson from this, is you only become the chief after you've gone through being the warrior. And understand that once you're the chief, your job as a warrior doesn't end. It's just you have more people behind you when you go to war. So that's it. That's it for today's show. I'm really hoping that you all can start to see a little bit of what I'm hoping for this year. I'm taking some things up a level. You're not going to see all of it. You're going to see some of it. But I'm taking some things up a level this year. I'm in the lab a lot more. Not only that, I have some high expectations this year. Not necessarily just because I'm not going to do something dumb, be like, I challenge blah 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 to this, other than Pusheen on the win. Still down for that, because I feel healthy competition is fun. But I think this year is going to be a very interesting year for Phoenix Nest and for the show. Yeah, I really do think that. Episode 200, I think I'm going to try to get the guys on for episode 200. After episode 200, I'm going to have Roni KJS, Roni KJS, myself, KJ from the team, and Will Holland, and we're going to do sort of a pre-February Black History Month, think about these characters podcast. So that's hopefully like our next 2 weeks of shows. So you're like, yay! And yeah. So you can follow me on Twitter at StartOverPod. It came from outer space and told me, man, you do not want to deal with the Orions from Sector 34B. It's rough. It's rough out there. They wear your skull as a hat. And you can see my random musings on the Twitter and also find out if a new show is up. You can email me at startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. That's startingoverpodcast@gmail.com if you wish to opine. Keep it piffy, keep it interesting, keep it awesome, baby. Shout outs to, I think his homie's name Eric. Shout outs to you, Eric. Eric Atkinson. He was able to get into the Phoenix Nest crew on the win. So congratulations to you, helping him with the team that's super secret. So, yay. Also, you can donate to the show at on the blog startingoverpodcast.blogspot.com. Is a Bearing Wasteland that has a bucket there that says contribute change for the poor or for better technology. Yeah. So that's it for today's show. Yeah, that's it for today's show. Thank you for listening. And remember, we all have to start over sometime.